Okay, folks, good morning. Let's see if we can finish priming these figures this morning. I took the Caesar ones. And sprayed them down again with the dish soap. And we'll see if we have better results. Well, let's not do that. There should be plenty. Seems to be pretty durable. Let's see if this goes on easier than the ones yesterday morning. Yep. I guess that's what I'll probably do every time. I'll use that same method. I can glue them on here and then I'll spray them down. It's probably easier. That Dawn dish soap spray platinum stuff, that stuff's amazing. That's really, really good. Mr. Ben, good morning. Haven't been able to catch up fully with the last week of streams. I know. Well, I finally got back on the schedule of painting on work mornings. So that's good. And get back to the old routine. I got back to my old routine of not walking 20,000 steps every day. Unfortunately. And I'm not going to mess with these guys until tomorrow morning at the earliest. That way it'll give this primer some time to set. I'd heard people say really horrible things about this primer. They don't like it. I've been using it for a long time and really have had no issues. But apparently it needs a little bit of time to set. Also somebody said something kind of preposterous. I don't know, preposterous because it doesn't make any sense to me, even though it might be true. That primer dries from the inside out. I don't know. I'm not a science guy. That doesn't make any sense to me. In my little world, that doesn't make any sense. So what'd you guys do that while the 2.5 or 3 weeks that I was gone? You guys had to have been watching something more interesting than my show while you were doing your hobby. Cough's about gone. It's funny that the three of us all got sick in Europe, all at different times. I was the first one to get symptoms, and it was a pain because of the incessant coughing. You couldn't stop, and and when it was time to go to bed, it was just I had to basically sleep upright. That was a pain in the butt. Other than that, I felt great. Went to your first war game show. You've never been to a war game show? Man, last Sunday, Valpar, Vap, good lord, Vapnartak over at York Racecourse. Well, the question is, will you go to a second war game show? I was keeping you from going to a war game show, man. It's a war game show in Jacksonville this weekend, and I don't know that I'm going to drop by. There's some people I want to see. Looked at pictures of. You will. Show of weapons. It was a weapons show? The the hotel that I was staying in Sevilla was, it was a nice accommodation in a great location, this big plaza. And one morning, think the second to last morning, we were there. I noticed there were these cops outside. They put this little, I don't know if it was an armored vehicle. It didn't look super armored. If it was armored, it didn't look like something they could shoot out from, okay? So it was almost like a minivan, so to speak. It had, what is it that they call it? Guardia Nacional, National Guard. I think that's what was written on it. And there was 4 or 5 officers out there, armed in the way that cops would be armed in the United States. Except for one. One guy had an MP7. I think it was an MP7. Or something like an MP7. Which is unusual for. It's unusual, I guess some people freak out when there's cops that are armed. All cops in the United States are armed. It's very unusual to see somebody with an automatic weapon in the United States, unless something's going down, or you're at the airport or something like that. This guy's like looking around, and they're looking in manhole covers and stuff, and they're looking calmly. And what I figured is, since it was a plaza, there were some politicians that were going to come speak in the plaza, and they wanted to clear the area to make sure there weren't any booty traps. So I didn't think anything of it. The two guys that were running valet, they were probably, I don't know, in their 20s, were freaking out. They're like, man, I never seen people with guns before. I'm like, well, don't come to the U.S. And everybody up and down were swearing that there was like no violent crime in Spain at all. I'm like, if there's no violent crime in Spain, why are your cops armed with submachine guns? I call bullshit, but nobody would tell you anything that was going on. Well, I was able to connect the dots, and it wasn't anything I was worried about. Although every time I stepped out on the balcony, I kept looking around and see if I was going to see some sniper or something like that. I've seen that movie. What was the name of that movie that takes place in Spain? Shit. Vantage Point. Vantage Point, where it's that's a cool movie. I've seen it a few times. Show of weapons. I did spend a shade under. Good God, man. 300 quid. Actually, 300 is such a big number, you can't use quid behind it. You have to say pound sterling, right? Quid is like a little number. That's like saying, I don't know. And a load of Blue Moon 15mm Sudan miniatures. There are a good few video reports from Vapnartak on YouTube. Booty traps. I guess some folks just don't like top-heavy girls. That's right. Look out for the junk in the trunk. Booty traps. That's right. I said it that way on purpose. I was floored. Absolutely floored at one of the stores that I went to in Madrid. How many books they had on military history in Spain that I have never set eyes on. Well, they're not translated in English. They don't make it to the Americas. And, if I was doing Renaissance gaming, I probably would have spent maybe not 300 euros, but certainly 150 on them. But then it's difficult to transport those books. And I'm a bit of a book Nazi. You mean you burn them? No, I don't like my pages curled. Jeez. What kind of a Nazi do you think I am? And transporting them on your luggage is not a good idea. So I did make note of what books had what type of things in them. Saw that they were available for Amazon. So instead of them being just shy of 20 euros, they'd cost like $40 with shipping. So maybe double. Whatever. If I would have bought them, I wouldn't be reading them right now. I'm not gonna be doing 80 Years War stuff, But I didn't spend enough time in the UK to really partake in any of that cuisine. I think I had only tea one time. We did a little tea tasting thing, whatever you call it, lunch type thing. I'm not going to call it high tea because somebody told me that's not really high tea. Okay, whoa, whatever, man. It's not my cup of tea. Figuring out what it's called. Never found the reason to have the ubiquitous beans and toast. Not touching the black shit. I've had that before once, never again. Did I have a sausage roll? No. No, my daughter had a, what did she call, a bacon roll. And shit, it was great. I took a bite of it and I'm like, and I like English bacon, but I've had better. Um, the gin and tonic that I had on the, I mean, it's been a while since I had a gin and tonic. The gin and tonic I had on British Airways on the way to Spain was fantabulous. And they did it wrong. They used lemon instead of lime, but it was still wonderful. What else? Actually, that meal on British Airways was incredible. We had some curry, something or another, and I'm like, is there more? Well, we didn't go there to eat. We really didn't go to Spain to eat either, you know? We, on the flight over, so the, so we flew from Florida through Atlanta to JFK and arrived at JFK about 1 p.m., something like that. And the flight didn't leave JFK to go to Heathrow until 8 p.m. our time. And it would arrive at 7:30 a.m. Greenwich, something like that. So it was very strange in that there was dinner that was served on Virgin Atlantic at about, the flight left at 8, probably about 9:30 at night, which is really your 3 in the morning, something like that. And then 3 hours later, they were going to serve breakfast. You know, they were going to serve dinner on Eastern Standard Time, but serve breakfast on Greenwich time, which meant that you're only going to have 3 hours between, or so, between lunch and dinner, between dinner and breakfast. So the stewardess says to me, says, "Are you going to have breakfast with us?" And I'm like, "When is that?" I said, "Oh, in a few hours." And I'm like, I probably need to sleep, but um, you can just let me know in the morning. I said, "Well, you can just decide. You can just decide when we're handing that stuff out." So I took a snooze because we're in these little cubbies, like in these a cubby that's it's off at a little bit of an angle for whatever reason. I forget which way it was angled. My wife was over here. We were in the middle of the plane. My daughter was up against the window, and I think my feet went this way and her feet went that way. So and there was a partition. It was interesting. It was quite comfortable actually. And I have dinner, and per my usual, I fall asleep, and I start kind of stirring because I start hearing the smell of food being prepared for breakfast or something like that, and I'm kind of half asleep, and over the top of that cubby, I hear the British stewardess go in something that reminded me right off of Mrs. Doubtfire. She goes, "Hello." And I looked up and I just started laughing. And you probably thought I was crazy or something like that. But that was what I said, man, I just got so tickled that you just, in that tone. But I ended up having breakfast because I'm like, okay, if I don't, then I'm going to be hungry. And I mean, I might as well. When in Rome, I was going to need the energy for that day because that day was basically nonstop. Got about 3 hours of sleep. And then, we spent the whole day in, that was day one in London. So, but there's something about, I don't know if everywhere in the UK, but in every day we were in London was completely overcast, like severely overcast. And when we flew out, everything was covered in that fog. As far as the eye can see, as we're on our way to Madrid, the entire Bay of Biscay was entirely covered. I couldn't see Normandy. It was all covered in that fog. And on the way back, because we came from Madrid to Heathrow. As soon as we got over the channel, it was completely covered. It was weird. It was like this swath of, I'm sure it varies something, but somewhere between, and I didn't have my altimeter with me. Sorry, I wasn't the pilot on this flight. But somewhere between, say, 3,000 and 8,000 feet, there's this fog bank that is just like this curse of no one on this island will see daylight ever, you know? It was just the weirdest thing. And I'm not surprised that it's foggy. I'm just surprised that it's like no sunlight for you. It was like very, very strange. However, it is dreary, but it keeps the temperature nice because I like it moist and cold. I'd be inside somewhere and felt terrible and go outside and breathe it in and you feel great. It's just the same time of day all day long. You know, you got to spend all day eating ice cream to cheer up. But really surprised with the water quality in Europe. Like drink from the freaking faucet, no problem. Um, can't wait to go back. Can't wait to go back. Not going to a third world country until I go to Europe again. I got no interest in going to a third world country. All that nonsense. Now here's the thing that really doesn't make any sense. Okay? And you guys probably know this. I know that nobody uses the plugs, and we had the plugs, okay? But I know nobody uses the U.S. outlet plugs in Europe. But I didn't realize that Britain and Europe use two different ones. I had no idea that. That's just being contrarian. I had no idea that was the case. We had all the different things because we had some hand me downs. Oh, when we go to Europe, take this. We don't need these anymore, kind of thing. But really, why can't we just all use the same plug? Like, pick one. I don't care. The British one's not bad, actually. The British one stays in the wall pretty well. And just as predicted, the one thing I didn't like about the UK was that whole driving on the wrong side. And I didn't even drive. I'm crossing the freaking sidewalk is like back asswards. It's like you feel like you're drunk. Like, man, which way you doubt yourself. I'm never going to get over that. I'm fine with everything else. Really, I'm fine with everything else. Um, I'm never going to drive in Australia or freaking Ireland or nope. That's just a recipe for disaster. You need to have confidence when you're driving, not wondering like, am I going the right way? Am I in the right place? If you're asking that question, you probably aren't. But it's funny, if the cab that we took from the airport to go to the hotel to drop our stuff off at Heathrow. As soon as I get in the cab, I'm like in the wrong side. As I'm riding in the front because there's three of us. There's no point in all three of us being smushed in the back. So I always rode in the front, making sure the driver didn't get lost or anything, right? So I'm up in the front of the cab, and this guy I'm feeling like I'm naked, like I'm the driver with no steering wheel. And then after a couple days, I kind of get used to it to the point where I get in Spain and now I'm on the normal side and I'm like, I got used to getting in the car on that one side. But crossing the sidewalk was just, it was weird. Just really, really weird. We do have the best plug. There's plenty of analysis attesting to that. The US has low voltage outlets for some reason, and the lack of an earth pin is not great. Oh, you mean well, now hold on a second. Now, all of mine have a grounding one. All of mine have a grounding. Just some things you get don't have grounders on them. Well, you guys are always saying we're not trying to save the earth. We are. We're using lower voltage, so it's like better for the environment. We got to save all that power to make guns. Um, what else? Again, I mean, I don't know if I've said this before. I came back from this trip. The last trip I went to was to Mexico, and I literally kissed I planted a kiss on on the on the connecting tube from the airplane to the once I got to the airport, and went and had barbecue. I didn't feel that way when I came back from Europe. I didn't really feel out of place. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's a good thing. I mean, my fucking people come from there, so I mean, maybe if I didn't know anything about the history or didn't care about the history, it wouldn't be the same. But had zero problems, zero problems. Like I don't think I even encountered somebody in the UK letting us in the country. In Spain, the guy was kind of giving me the evil eye. I'm like, shit, I'm more Spanish than you are. Get the fuck out of here. You know? I think he was throwing my daughter my daughter threw him for a loop because she had a school visa. And I don't think he'd ever seen that before. But it was just nice to finally go to a country where they do some things better than the United States. Yeah, I said it. I'm fair. I'll tell you one thing that did make me sad, and I haven't put out the video yet for Gibraltar. I looked at Gibraltar Harbor. There wasn't a single Royal Navy ship out there. That's fucking sad. I know Britain doesn't need a navy. Yada 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 yada. Okay, well you guys waste money on dumber shit than having a navy. Sorry, I'm used to it. Like, where the hell is Force? Where the hell is Force H? I'm in Gibraltar. There's no Force H here. What the hell? I'm sorry, Force H. A lot of electric vehicles in London. A lot of electric vehicles. A lot of Toyota electric vehicles in London. Go to Spain, no Toyotas. Like none. It's also interesting vehicles in Spain. I didn't even know Citroen was still in business. Renault, Peugeot, Opel, Skoda. Like, man, look, it's a Czech 35. A Skoda, which one of you guys told me was owned by Volkswagen. Saw very few Volkswagens. Oh, my daughter did spot a Type 2 bus equivalent, whatever it's called, the electric one. Cute little thing. That's because of the tax thing on real vehicles in London. Well, I didn't vote for that. I always vote against taxes, just so you know. I always vote against people that don't know how to spend money, getting more money. And excuse my ignorance, but I think when I purchased things in Spain, there was no tax on top of the item. I think when I bought that thing and it was €10, that's what I paid, was €10. Now I went to one hobby store and I really didn't pay attention to what things cost, probably for my own good. But I bought something that was $9.95. I think it was the Caesar guys, and that's how what I was charged, $9.95. So is the tax already figured in there? Man, that's the way to do it. Just just put the tip already in there and put the tax already in there. Just tell me how much it's going to be, and that's how much it's going to be. A good few of the black cabs are electric now. We rode in one back to the airport. We rode in one, and it was an actual native that drove it. That's the only native cab driver or Uber driver we were at in Britain. It was an old dude, not an old dude, an older dude. Um, and I told him about the one guy that we Ubered, and he went down the wrong way on the one-way street. I didn't say anything because I'm like, hey, you should know it's your country. We don't have that many one-way streets where I'm from, anyways. It's unusual to have a one-way street. But in London, that's the I saw people do stupid shit like um, in front of the hotel. The roads go both ways. Hold on, it's back asswards. So the hotel's on the north side of the street, so the traffic goes this way. So we picked up the cab and it needed to go this way. He just went and did a U-E right in the middle of the whole thing. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to do that. Is there a reason the sales tax is excluded in the U.S.? Probably so the government can hire more stupid fucking people to work. It's dumb as shit. There was actually a restaurant, and I don't know where it was, and I think it's only happened maybe twice in my entire life, that they worked it so that when you added tax, it would either end in 25 cents, 50 cents, 75, or an even dollar. It was like a fast food joint that did that. One time I've seen that in my life. There's a different tax for every different county. There's like a surtax. It's just bullshit, man. Either, if you're going to charge people income tax, charge them income tax, and that's all the tax you pay. Or if you don't pay income tax, just pay it on the stuff you buy. But not like, okay, we want you taxed on your income, taxed on the stuff that you buy. Oh, and if you sell something, you got to pay on tax on that too. And if you buy, I'm like, what kind of, that is just a lot of mental overhead. you know? In Europe, most places have the VAT added into the price, which is displayed. Excellent. Excellent. Is there a reason it's not like the 7-Eleven can shuffle across state lines to screw up? VAT is already included in the retail price. Overseas used to be able to reclaim VAT on their purchases when they left. Nah, that's too complicated. Um, I'm telling you, this was a steal, man. And maybe it was old pricing. I would have bought more of these if they had them around. It was £9.45 for two of these. Like, that's like $11 or something. Maybe 12. Nah, I don't think it's up to 12 yet. Euros are almost exactly the same, so. But man, we're getting fucked on food in this country. I'm telling you, we're getting bent over. And not getting our back scratched on food. We had one of the things that we ate in Spain a lot as for breakfast, because we like it and it was available everywhere, is like this piece of bread. Sometimes it's two pieces of bread, real bread, not made in some fucking factory in Kansas with a shitload of preservatives that can be out for like 2 weeks and not go bad. Like real fucking bread that somebody locally seemed to make. About this big, with some olive oil and some pureed tomato, so to speak. And then you put the olive oil on there, tomato, and sometimes it came with some ham. We had 3 of those, so each one of those of us had one, and a coffee, and it was €8. I'm like, what? That would have cost, I don't know, $30 here in the United States. No kidding. Ever since COVID, it would cost $30. Before COVID, it probably would have cost 24, maybe 22. That's kind of what our prices have changed. So, we went to Aldi's when we were left. Let's see, where did we leave? Where were we leaving? We were leaving Salamanca to go to Sevilla. So it was a relatively long road trip. Not by American standards, but by European standards, a longer road trip. And we're like, well, let's go some provisions. So we go to the Aldi's, and this Aldi is cleaner than the ones we have here, which the Aldi's that are here in the United States are kind of like a little sketchy. Like, you got people that go in there that just have issues. You can tell, like, is this like a Greyhound bus station also? Just unfortunately that's the case here. But the Aldi's was wonderful. They had better products that we have, cheaper. They had like a whole tray of like this. I mean, talk about the land of ham. Like, which sliced ham do you want? I'm like, that looks good. That's not too red. That doesn't have enough color. Well, so it was like a whole thing of ham for like $4. That would have cost, I don't know, $9 here. And real bread, a whole loaf of bread that was like freaking €1, and you put it in a little machine there and it sliced it for you. Just, we're getting bent on food here. We're really getting bent on food. And here's the other thing that really surprised me. There was a lot more, it seemed like there was a lot more small businesses in Europe than there are here in the United States. At Aldi today, I saw a bag of corn on the cob flavored crisps. Did you go anywhere near the Salamanca battlefield? No. I'm not a nappy guy, so Salamanca might as well be like the moon. No. And I saw pictures of it. It's just like an open field. No, Salamanca is probably the place we traveled the least. We got there late, and we got there already when it was dark, and we walked a little downtown and really didn't do anything. It was kind of a whistle stop on the way to work our way. It was a staging area on the way to another staging area to Gibraltar. We didn't do a whole lot in Salamanca. And to be honest with you, of all the places we visited, it's probably the one I was the least interested in. Why'd you say that? Well, it's a new city, so I'm interested in like medieval and like Renaissance stuff. Salamanca is more of a 1700s time period. It's more modern than the other cities. Um, we did have a pretty nice meal there. That my wife tried that whole the pig thing, the cochinillo thing, which none of us liked. It was way too greasy. Um, and then when we left dinner, the freaking ice cream store was freaking closed. Sons of bitches. But we were just in and out. We were basically in and out every day of every place that we went to, except Madrid, where we spent 3 days at the beginning, and Sevilla, where we spent four at the end. Every other place was just like one night. So like you get there, you got to do like some stuff, and then wake up, do a few things, and then move to the next post, kind of thing. But no, I didn't go to the battle. Going to a battlefield would probably, assuming I was even interested in, which I wasn't, going to a battlefield is probably going to be off the table as far as the girls are concerned because I can talk them into going into a museum or something like that, but going into a battlefield where there's nothing there, that's a bit why are we here kind of thing. I mean, the only thing I know about the Battle of Salamanca is that the British won, right? There's the British and the Portuguese and the Dutch Belgians or whatever, because that's what their force is made up. There might have been some Spanish there and the French. That's it. That's all I know. And it's in 1812. I'm not a nappy guy. Hey, Marcus. Good morning. That's not my expertise. My expertise is getting pissed off when I go to the Churchill Arms pub and they have a Spitfire hanging from the ceiling that only has two propellers. Like, no, that's the shit I know. And I think somebody said, well, there was one that had two propellers. No, not the ones that went in combat. They didn't. There might have been some trainer or something like that. Spitfires always have three or four bladed propellers. I ain't falling for that shit. Now, what I wasn't expecting is that Spanish beer was as good as it was. I'm sorry, German beer that they taught the Spanish how to make. I'm sure that's the case. I had a beer every chance I got in Spain. Well, they have these little beers too. They have these beers that are like they're not much bigger than this. That's perfect because I'm not there to get drunk. I'm there to have a beverage, sip on a beverage while I'm waiting my food to get here. They might have been a little bit bigger than this. Perfect. They don't get warm, you know? This is saw grubby tanks and a fair amount of 20 millimeter wool. Oh, stop it. Now you're just being mean. So, I'm going to take a bit of a road trip today. There is a, there is a, um, there is a hobby. No, there is a model meeting. There is a model show in Jacksonville, and people always, man, you got to enter stuff. I don't want to enter competitions anymore. I've done nothing for competitions the last 18, well, not, I skipped two, but for 18 years I've done nothing but competition stuff, and I wasn't even interested in competing. I've got more awards that I could put on any of these walls, and none of them are up. Although I should put the DBA one up, but I don't give a shit. That's just a different phase in life. So I don't need to be judged by anybody. You know, at my age, I need to be the judge, jury, and the executioner, not be judged by other people. Um, I entered a couple. I entered something in a Historicon painting event. The guy pissed me off. It's like, oh, I entered a DBA army. Well, you shouldn't have entered so many figures. I said, well, it's a DBA army. It's 12 stands. Well, that's too many. Well, go fuck yourself. I mean, I didn't tell him that, but in my mind, I did. In my mind, he was getting fucked by a forklift. Like I don't need to listen to lip from other people. So I'm not interested in entering a painting contest. But they're supposed to have some vendors up there, and I'm gonna take that opportunity. And I've got some books to trade in that I haven't either looked at or I haven't looked at in like 20 years. I probably should show you the books because you're never going to see them again. But they're nothing. There's this big like used bookstore place. Let me know if you want to see the books that you're never going to see again. There's this big used bookstore in Jacksonville. There's actually two. There's a there's a what am I saying? There's a spot. Well, one of them is downtown. It's the same bookstore, but one of them is in downtown. The other one is the main location, which almost looks like the size of a really big furniture store that's just subdivided a bunch of old books. So I figured I could get these for trade and get something that I'm interested in. And, I'm just trying to put a bunch of things together that makes sense to go up there for, because it's about an hour and change drive, but we're gonna do that early this morning. So I think I got time to prime all these guys and then let these guys set so we can mess with them tomorrow morning. These two guys, I put these together that friend Jose surprised me with in Spain, and I'll probably prime these at some point tonight. A little 220, 254, 252, and a 221. This will be for Africa Core. These were pretty much used for stugs for ammo, and I'm gonna make this one gray because they were produced like all in 40 and 41. So the odds of one of these surviving until Dunkelgelb comes, it's more likely I'm gonna use it in gray. So we'll prime those when we get back. Show us the goods. Okay. The books you'll never see again. I should just tease you, like, okay, I'll show you in about a half an hour, force you guys to stay on here, but I don't roll that way. All right. Stuff you're never going to see again. The stuff you never saw. All right. From the bottom. Weapons International Encyclopedia from 5,000. Somebody gave me this a long time ago, probably 30 years ago. I may have looked at it a couple times. It just takes up a lot of space. It just it has a lot of different stuff and it's all over the place. I don't think I've ever flipped this thing open until now, since probably 1990. So, bye-bye. I think I picked this up at the used bookstore. It's going right back to them. Ancient World Commanders. It's got a bunch of different... See, these are the paintings I hate. Okay? Here's a perfect example of a painting I hate. When I talked about going to the museums and going to churches and stuff in Europe, And there's stuff that's painted out of period. So here's a picture about Leonidas. Okay, you know who that guy is, right? The Spartan, right? It's painted by this French painter, Jacques Louis David, which is a pretty famous painter. Okay? But it's painted out of period. So he's painted in 1814, Napoleonic period, about what they wore in Sparta. They didn't have a fucking clue. I mean, they had a clue, but there's inaccuracies. Is actually they're not wearing much other than a helmet and cloak, so kind of hard to get that wrong. But they'll do like Bible stuff like that, right? Like they'll do like scenes from the Bible, but they're painted like in Renaissance times. They don't have, that's like a worthless picture to look at, you know, because they don't. I mean, we even make mistakes nowadays. You know, they're going to make them in the 1500s. So yeah, here it is. Julius Caesar receiving the surrender of Vercingetorix by Henry Paul Mott, or Motte. Wrong equipment. Don't forget to hit the like button. There you go. Unless you don't like my content, in which case I don't want to see you again. Just pretty much a generic book, you know. This book, I've had this book forever, probably since the 1980s. Gatefold Book of the World's Great Warships. Well, there's lots of things that are omitted. It's a Barnes & Noble's book. There's some cut-through diagrams that look okay, but, so many things are omitted that it's like, it's a snapshot of a couple different things in here. Just, I gotta make space for other books. And I love warship stuff, but not that one. I've had this book since I was a kid. World War II tanks. The problem with it is there's so much wrong shit in here now. You'll have like this British tank that's not in the correct color. There's not going to be any text that's... I'm not going to go here to look for any of the text stuff. Here's a Mark IV cruiser in the wrong color scheme. There's just so much wrong illustration you have to get through. I want to say some of this illustration stuff off those Ballantine books, which, were great in their day, but by today's standards, like, I'm not going to come here and look for any of this information. There is interesting snippets in here, but I'm not going to go here first to find it out. Like, here's a snippet about, the Char-B series. The duties of the four-man crew were complex, and even with a skilled and highly trained team, the distribution of jobs did not lend itself to tactical efficiency in action. The driver of the tank also doubled as the main gunner. Didn't know that. Elevating the 17.1 caliber 75 millimeter using a hand crank, while also usually controlling the single-hull machine gun. A separate loader fused the 75 millimeter ammunition and passed 47 millimeter shells to the electrically traversed turret, where an overworked commander/gunner attempted to direct the tank and/or formation, and also worked the high-velocity armament. The four-man crew was completed by a wireless operator, who didn't have a fucking thing to do compared to those other guys. There's some interesting text in here, but I'm never gonna go in here and search this stuff, because honestly, this book came out, let's say 1979. Let's see how close I am. Oh, here's a tankette with an Italian flamethrower tankette. Oh, it's copyright 1976, 78, 87. So I guess technically 76. It's taken up space. I haven't looked at this in a long time. It's a lot of generic type of information. Bye. This. I don't know why I got this or when I got this. Well, probably the 60th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. Introduction by Tom Hanks. Display until 8/23/04. I flipped through this. I don't think I've ever looked through it. I looked at it. I don't see anything in here that's of any value whatsoever for the amount of detail that I'm looking for with specificness. I'm just like, okay, somebody gives me $1 for this. Okay, whatever. I can put that towards something else I'm actually going to look at. This book was on my Chinese kick. I probably put this up at Barnes and Noble, probably. Ancient China. There's nothing wrong with this other than there's just a lot of like generic shit that has to do with civilization and not the military. Sure, there's some things that can transplant themselves in that, but you know, I'm gonna go like, oh look, there's some armored warriors here on horseback. I'm gonna go somewhere else and look for that. My first place I'm gonna go is the internet. So why do I have this thing taking up space? You know, so it's going to be a while before I paint any more Chinese horsemen. I mean, I like my Chinese armies, but you know. 25 years ago, when I was doing 20mm stuff, I picked up this book to give me ideas of what the interiors are going to be. And this is a beautiful book, but I'm like, I'm never going to look at this. This is like inside of like Hungarian houses, just to give you an idea. Because I was going to decorate the inside of the fucking houses and shit like that. I'm like, especially like peasant homes and things like this. Like, I don't need this big fucking book. See ya. I've got some repeat books that I got from somebody else. I already have a copy of each one of these, so I don't feel bad about getting rid of this. The Panther in Action from Squadron Signal, which is, I still think to this day, the Squadron Signal stuff is like the best shit out there. And the reason why it's the best shit out there, and this is so old, it says $3.95 on it. I guess they stopped doing that. The copies I had in Denver had the price on them. The reason why Squadron Signal is the best is because they've got these little sketches. They got these little sketches that literally like show the differences between different things in an easy to understand manner. You know, the different exhausts here of the Panthers. Nobody does shit as clear as this. Maybe they are. I don't know what they are, but these things have been around forever. You know, the exhaust on the Panther D, that kind of stuff. I got a copy of this already. That one's going away. Panzer Colors 1. I've got 1, 2, and 3 already. This is a Panzer Colors 1. I don't really look at Panzer Colors anymore, and I have the full set. So this one's getting traded. Hold on. Smells kind of like Britain. That library smell. I already have a copy of this. This is a book that I looked through a lot because when I was doing 135th scale modeling, one of the units that I like to do on the Eastern Front a lot was Grossdeutschland. And this is one that's specifically for our Grossdeutschland. And one thing I noticed is it's written by Horst Scheibert. And Horst Scheibert is a tank commander of well, I'm sure he was in a lot of other things, but what I know him as is he was one of the tank commanders that wrote the memoirs when he was in the 6th Panzer Division. I believe it was the 6th Panzer Division. And Wintergewitter. So, you know, this is actually a great book. It was a superb book in its day. I think it's probably not as valuable now as it was before then because a lot of this stuff is available in other places on the internet or what have you. But I already have a copy of that. That's an extra copy. That's going. What else? This book I got from a friend of mine. Same thing. Issue. I don't think I've looked at it since he gave it to me. Probably around 1990. Tanks of World War II. This one's probably better than the other ones. But then there's a lot of like misshown shit on here. Hey, here's your Gazala. Here's your Gazala Grant there. You know, there might be some things of value. You can't trust the colors. You know, like I said, the first place I'm going to go is the internet. You know, oh, there's some desert shit. Hold on. Cruiser tank, Cruiser 2 Alamein, Fontenoy. Well, I don't really trust the. I don't trust this. I don't trust the color plates anymore. You know, if I really wanted to, I'd take a picture of that page and move on. Churchill's, Sharpies. No reason to have that. I'm kind of regretting getting rid of this book. I might ask them how much they're going to give me for this before I get rid of it. This is a book that I don't know how I got this, honestly. I may have purchased it myself. I don't think I've looked through it much. And I don't know why, because it's actually pretty decent. But it covers the entire war, military history of World War II. Just to give you an example, the text is a little bit like, almost like newspaper-like. But, you know, there's interesting stuff like, you know, anti-submarine aircraft, and they're all shown there. Ships in the Battle of the Atlantic. I may not get rid of this because there's just stuff I should be reading in here and I haven't. Africa Corps Transport. I'm just not going to go here first. I mean, I didn't even know these pictures were even in here. It's a little too generic. And then there's wrong shit in here. Like, here's a picture of a Bren gun with that stupid chrome line barrel. And according to one of you guys was telling me that, you know, this was just the Mark 1 and the Mark 2 didn't have this. And here it shows this is a Mark 1 and it shows the pictures mislabeled. You know, so just black and white pictures. I don't care about black and white pictures. You know, and then if the color stuff is wrong, you know, like American carrier aircraft, if this is cool, they're all there on one page. You know? The text is just it's a little bit too zoomed out for my taste. Oh, here's some German armored cars. Or one. Yeah, it's just too big of a book that's just not that useful. So, you have that book. It's on top of a unit, blocking the gap at the back so I can really put useful. You have that book. It's on top of a unit, blocking the gap at the back so I can push really useful boxes to the wall. So you're not using it either. I mean, it's a decent book, but are you ever going to go and look in here? You're not. You know? This is probably a great book when you're like 13 or 14 years old. You know? So all that stuff's going. Jeffrey found a good use. It's not a terrible book. It's really bulky and it's not. I'm not interested in generic things, you know. I'm past that point. Like I kind of got that shit down. Although I could read there and find things I didn't even know, you know. Like, for instance, I flipped the page and I saw something. I like, oh, I probably should freaking read this. Turning point in the desert. What's this something about Medellin or something like that? Long range desert group. You know, if I want to read about the long range desert group, I'm not going there. Victory in the desert. Tank killing ground at Medellin. The anti-tanks involved were almost all 6-pounder weapons, though scattered among them were numbers of the novel 17/25-pounder guns, which you can actually make one of them in the Plastic Soldier Company set. These were a conversion of 25-pounder field gun carriages to accommodate the long 17-pounder barrel. When the attack came on 6th of March, all was ready. The Germans appeared to have had no idea what they were advancing into, and following the expected artillery preparation of tanks and infantry of the 10th, 15th, and 21st Panzer Divisions plus supporting formations were allowed to advance within 100 yards of an anti-tank gun screen. Wow, that's close. The screen was not laid out in any linear basis, was carefully placed and concealed in positions that made the best use of any local cover. Most were in place and organized as batteries, nearly all of them manned by Royal Artillery. Where possible, these guns were controlled as batteries, but on many occasions, individual gun crews were able to select their own targets. The Germans advanced directly against the center of the 3 divisions of 30th Corps. Once they were within the prepared range, the guns opened up. The close range had been selected for 2 reasons. Firstly, well, you know it's written by a British person if it starts with that. Firstly, at such close ranges, the 6-pounder guns could be used to best effect. And secondly, to entice as much of the enemy's armor into the killing ground as possible. Once within the area, their chances of getting out were much reduced. The result was a virtual slaughter of the German tanks, 35, 60, and 46 respectively by division. Individual tank guns produced some remarkable scores. One gun of the 75th Anti-Tank Regiment was able to hit 6 tanks with the first 6 rounds fired. In another position, the battery watched as a line of German tanks moved side-on right across the front. When they opened fire, a few of their tank targets survived. The anti-tank gun fire was not all that the Germans had to face, for as they advanced, they also moved directly to the pre-planned barrage of fire produced by 172 field and medium guns that constituted the entire Corps artillery strength. This fire seriously affected the hapless German infantry, who attacked with their usual determined fervor, but were able to dislodge the defenders at only one location, where a spirited counterattack threw them out. But it was the anti-tank screen that caused the most damage. Without the support of the German tanks, the infantry could do little unaided. The first 2 hours, 50 of the main force of 141 Afrika Korps tanks that moved into the killing ground had been knocked out. Some of these were much vaunted Tigers. Their armor, as expected, was proof against the projectiles fired from the 6-pounder guns, but was not proof against the fire from 17/25-pounder weapons. The 6-pounders also attempted to use a tactic that was later to become a standard practice: the manhandling of the guns round the flanks of a Tiger. The German attack was decimated. The killing ground in front of the 30th Corps position was a graveyard of German tanks. Tanks that the Germans would be hard to replace and which would be sorely missed during the forthcoming campaign in Tunisia itself. See, and I'd never heard about this. But then I'm not a Tunisia gamer. I have nothing against it. I've just never done it, never played it before. That was an interesting little snippet here. But I'm not going to keep the book just for shit like that, you know. I have several of those coffee table type books performing the same task. I do sometimes look at them when I'm reorganizing. Yeah. There's probably interesting snippets of information in here, but as the whole thing, you know. You know, I've got a book like this. It's called like the World War II Atlas. That's a lot more useful. It's got maps in it and shit like that. Anyways, all that stuff's gonna get traded out. I'm out of space anyways, and like I'm not gonna look at any of those things. Certainly not the repeat books. So, anyhow, that was my teaser. All right, back to painting these krauts. Yeah, so this stuff that we have, this dishwashing detergent, it's the spray platinum Dawn dish soap spray. There's some amazing shit. You can make some stuff happen with that. So I just sprayed these guys down, rubbed them a little bit, put them on a paper towel to dry. I guess this stuff needed 2 coats. 2 coats of cleaning. There was that much of the agent. Taiwanese release agent. We'll see how they paint up. I don't really love the way these Caesar guys look. I don't dislike them. Their heads are a little small. I think they'll paint up okay. And we got a lot of interesting variety. I probably have enough to do a platoon of Africa Corps guys. That's probably perfect. I don't need more than that. That's more than enough. So this guy have the wrong boots on? No, there's the laces. Got them kinky lace-up boots. They're only kinky if a girl's wearing them. The cap on this guy's a little weird. It's a little too stiff. Almost looks like French Foreign Legion instead of a German field cap. So we'll see. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to do an unboxing video of an unbooking video of what I pick up today. Freaking action pose here. They actually had a pretty good selection of Osprey books at the Imperial War Museum. I was kind of surprised, and they were actually at a good price, like something like £14 for a book. That's a pretty damn good price. Except, then I got to worry about transporting at the beginning of my journey and getting the the pages curled, and I'm gonna lose sleep over stuff like that. This guy's got given him a fascist fist bump. What's going on here? What's up, mein brother? Mein brother? Weird, man, weird. The desert does weird things to you. But I think when I get those build those armor fast M10s, I'm probably going to make a casting of that gun breech. So if I end up coming across any other M10s that don't have that part included, I can cast it, because you pretty much have to have that. It's definitely peeking out of the turret type of thing. I'm I don't think I've ever been to a an IPMS type of show. I don't know that it's a very big one. It's it's held at like the social room of like a Baptist church. So I mean, it's can't be that big. I mean, I guess it could be flat full of people, but I asked them at meetings before. I was like, "Hey, what kind of vendors do they have?" Oh, people come from South Carolina and stuff. I'm like, "Really?" I said, "Well, they gotta have 1/72 scale armor, and they gotta have stuff at good prices because I'm not gonna buy shit just to buy shit. I didn't buy shit just to buy shit in Europe." As a matter of fact, oh, one thing I forgot to tell you about it, Marcus, is that place that had the Armor Fast. They had the Armor Fast building. Really needed some ammo racks as well. Still need to solve that for mine. Oh, well, now you gave me something to worry about. They had the Armor Fast building. It's like a little Armor Fast, like looks like an Italian building. I opted not to get it, even though it was a pretty decent price, because it has like no interior at all. I think, and that would have given me fits. So I decided not to get that. I don't feel like I buy things just to buy things. Especially since back in the day, I was guilty of buying stuff just to see what was inside the box. You don't have to do that anymore. You go to sites and tell you exactly what's inside there. So like there's none of that excitement. I got so many buildings to paint now. I'm gonna take a while. I think I'm gonna set up that destroyed French village tomorrow. All the other battle honors buildings look really good. The did you get the whole set that was the whole village with a fountain and a couple of wrecked cars and some rubble things? That looks like a really good set. That looks like a really good set. And I bet you got so many because just to cut down on the shipping, because battle honors is just it's the shipping on that is just really expensive. Yes, as a statue, plenty of rubble, but no wreck cars. I think you know what you're talking about. Yeah, I've looked at getting that. How's the 3D print lines on that? Is it okay or is it pretty noticeable? It doesn't bug me as much as it should. These two vehicles have them 3D print lines. I think they'll turn out pretty happy with how they'll turn out. I want to say these are by the guy that makes things in 15 millimeter. That when you zoom them out, they're a little bit more rough looking, but honestly, I think they look pretty darn good. I mean, it's a little cartoonish looking, but I think it'll look great once it's done. Rubbles Cooled has some stoves and furniture molded into some of the pieces. Yeah. They threw out the kitchen sink. Yeah, it's useful. They also had the place that had the in Gibraltar had a bunch of the Italeri. Nobody had the Italeri 2-pack tanks. That was definitely something I was looking for. Like if there had been like a really good priced M1340s, yeah, I would have snagged a bunch of those up. But they didn't. They didn't have any of the 2-pack Italeri sets of any of the places that I went to. That would have been that's probably the one thing I was looking for more than anything else. There's a good price on that. But they did have the Italeri like strong point. They make like a little like a watchtower or something like that. There's like 3 or 4 sets of them. They had them all. I'm like, I don't need to get that. That's not for North Africa. Yes, first order was 25% off, and the shipping was only $25. It's not bad. I kept adding things to see if it would change. That's not bad. They're the ones that make that Italian village that's just to die for. I've seen that and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so freaking cool. The little church, and there's a version you can get that comes with the whole base too, and like I remember looking at that before I painted any of my buildings, and I'm like, I can't get that. I don't know how to paint buildings. I could get it now. I'd get it looking good, but I don't want to get overwhelmed. Okay, folks, well, that's what's going to be it for this morning. We'll be back on, I don't know if I'll be back on later today, but definitely tomorrow morning, and we'll talk about the stuff that I saw and didn't see. All right, folks, thanks for coming by.